Watch until the end. What you're about to hear might change forever the way you see life and death. They don't want you to know this. The skeptics try to hide, ridicule, and discredit these stories, but the truth is much bigger than we can imagine. Now tell me, who wouldn't want to speak again with a loved one who has passed? Who wouldn't wish for that last hug, that final word, that goodbye that never happened? If you've ever felt that pain, that emptiness, then this video is for you. Watch until the end, because I'm going to tell you an incredible story that challenges everything you've ever heard about the afterlife. And there's more. At the end of this video, I have a special gift for you, something that could help you understand what really happens after death. But I'll only reveal it at the end. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from. It's very important to know how far this message is reaching. And more, if you've ever had a supernatural experience, if you've ever felt the presence of someone who passed, share it in the comments. Your story might turn into an incredible video for the whole world to see. Now, get ready. Let's dive into the incredible story of Vsevolod Zaporozhets, the man who broke the barriers between this world and the beyond. Who was Vsevolod Zaporozhets? Vsevolod Zaporozhets was not an ordinary man. Throughout his life, he underwent experiences that defied all logical explanations. Born during a turbulent period in history, he grew up amid profound philosophical and spiritual questions, always seeking to understand what lies beyond death. But it was a personal tragedy that led him to dive headfirst into the study of the supernatural. The loss of his wife changed everything. The pain of her absence, the void left by the departure of someone he loved deeply, drove him to begin an unwavering search for answers. Is death truly the end? Is it possible to stay in touch with those who have passed on? These questions consumed him, and he would not rest until he found concrete evidence. This is how he began to study accounts of contact with the beyond, analyze inexplicable phenomena, and delve into historical records of people who claim to have communicated with spirits. But the most surprising part was yet to come. Vsevolod began having his own experiences. Mysterious signs, inexplicable sensations, and events that defied reason started becoming part of his life. He believed that his wife was trying to communicate with him, and this led him to meticulously document each experience. What he discovered along the way was shocking and could change everything you think about the afterlife. But before revealing these secrets, tell me in the comments, have you ever had a supernatural experience? Have you ever felt the presence of someone who has passed? Share your story, as it may become a video for the world to see. Now get ready to discover how Vsevolod Zaporozhets broke the barriers between this world and the next. The connection with the other world. Vsevolod Zaporozhets was not only searching for answers about life after death, he found them. His first contact with the other world came unexpectedly, when strange signs began to appear shortly after the death of his wife. Objects moved without explanation. Inexplicable noises echoed through the house, and an invisible presence seemed to be watching him. But what marked him the most was a dream. That night, he felt that it was no ordinary dream. His wife was there, standing before him, more alive than ever. Her gaze was intense, and her voice didn't sound like a distant memory, but as if she was speaking directly to him. I am here. I've always been. You need to understand that death is not the end. When he woke up, Vsevolod felt a chill run through his body. Something had changed. Determined to uncover the truth, he began studying similar cases and delved into ancient methods of communicating with the beyond. It was then that even more intense phenomena started happening. In one of his experiences, he clearly heard his wife's name whispered in his ear, even though he was alone. On another occasion, papers containing his notes about the other world mysteriously disappeared and reappeared in places where he would never have left them. But he wasn't the only one to experience these phenomena. People who heard his stories began to share similar accounts. One woman claimed that after following one of the techniques taught by Vsevolod, she received a clear message from her deceased son, something only they could know. Another man, a lifelong skeptic, began to believe after feeling the presence of his deceased mother beside him, accompanied by a perfume she alone used. The accounts multiplied, lights flashing without explanation, voices captured on recordings, dreams in which loved ones delivered messages that were later confirmed in real life. Vsevolod knew this was no coincidence. He was dealing with something real. But if all of this is true, what really happens after we die? Where do we go? What lies on the other side? The answers he found are shocking, and in the next part of this video, we will explore what Vsevolod Zaporozhets discovered about the true nature of life and death. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear may change your view of reality forever. The contact with his deceased wife. It all began subtly. Soon after his wife's death, Vsevolod Zaporozhets started to notice small occurrences that seemed to have no explanation. In the silence of the night, he would feel a light breeze passing across his face, even though the windows were closed. Her perfume, that unmistakable scent, would appear out of nowhere, filling the room. But what disturbed him the most were the dreams. At first he thought they were just creations of his mind, overwhelmed by grief. But something felt different. The dreams were vivid, too real. In one of them, his wife stared at him and said, "I never left." These words echoed in his mind for days. He would wake up feeling that it was not just a dream. The signs became increasingly evident. Photographs he had kept began to fall without any apparent reason. Her wristwatch, which had stopped on the day of her death, inexplicably started working again. One night, while sitting in his chair, he clearly felt a hand rest on his shoulder. He turned quickly, but there was no one there. But the most impactful moment came when he decided to test something. He took a piece of paper and wrote a question that only his wife could answer. He folded the paper and placed it beside his bed. The next morning, he found the paper with marks that seemed to be traces of letters, as if someone had tried to respond. For him, there was no longer any doubt. She was trying to communicate. This experience completely transformed his view of life and death. If his wife was still there, if somehow she was still able to interact with the physical world, then death was not an end, but a transition. It was then that he fully immersed himself in the study of spirit communication and the quest to understand how this connection between worlds really works. And now I ask you, have you ever felt the presence of someone who passed away? Have you ever had a dream so real it felt like a true encounter? Share in the comments, as your story could become an incredible video for more people to discover that death may not be the end. What society and science say about this? Since ancient times, humanity has sought answers to one of the greatest mysteries of existence: what happens after death? Various cultures around the world have accounts of communication between the living and the dead, from the oracles of ancient Greece to modern-day mediums. But is there any scientific basis for this? Or is it all just belief and superstition? Traditional science has always treated these experiences with skepticism. For many researchers, accounts of communication with the beyond are explained by psychological phenomena, such as intense grief, the emotional need to find meaning in loss, or even hallucinations. However, there are studies that challenge this view. Dr. Gary Schwartz, a professor at the University of Arizona, conducted experiments with mediums and discovered that, in some cases, the information conveyed seemed impossible to explain by chance alone. The Institute of Noetic Sciences, founded by astronaut Edgar Mitchell, also studied consciousness phenomena beyond the physical body, suggesting that our mind may continue to exist even after death. But if there are indications that something happens beyond what we can measure, why is this still treated as a taboo? The conflict between skepticism and mysticism is intense. Society teaches us to believe only in what can be proven. But what if some truths are simply beyond our current understanding? Many theories suggest that what we call the afterlife may actually be a connection with other dimensions. Quantum physics already suggests the possibility of multiple universes coexisting. Scientists like Hugh Everett and his theory of multiple worlds indicate that consciousness may not be limited to our physical plane. Could the spirits trying to communicate with us come from these parallel realities? Whether through spirituality or science, one thing is certain. Thousands of people around the world report experiences with the supernatural, and ignoring this could be a mistake. What Vsevolod Zaporozhets discovered about his deceased wife could change everything we think about death. And now I ask you, do you believe that consciousness survives death? Leave your opinion in the comments. Secrets, they're hiding from us. The truth about the afterlife may be very different from what we've been led to believe. Are there powerful forces trying to conceal information about life after death? Is what Vsevolod Zaporozhets discovered just the tip of the iceberg? Throughout history, countless accounts of communication with the beyond have been ridiculed, suppressed, or simply ignored. Why? Who benefits from the fact that most people believe death is the absolute end? Many scientists and scholars who dared to challenge this narrative faced resistance. Physicist Thomas Edison, for example, worked on a device to communicate with the dead. Have you ever heard of this? No, because that project was swept under the rug. Nikola Tesla also mentioned having picked up inexplicable signals, which he believed were voices from entities in another dimension. But this part of his story is rarely shared. And what about cases of people who have had near-death experiences? Thousands of testimonies detail sensations, encounters with deceased loved ones, and visions of a world that seems more real than this one. But instead of investigating this thoroughly, traditional science labels it all as hallucination. The big question is, if these pieces of information were taken seriously, how would it change our perception of death? Imagine a world where people knew, without a doubt, that consciousness continues after the physical body. This would change the way we live, our choices, our fears, and maybe that's why they want to keep us in the dark. But now I ask you, have you had any signs or experiences that made you believe that death is not the end? Share in the comments. And if you want to know more about this mystery, keep watching, because the final revelation of this video will surprise you. If Vsevolod Zaporozhets was right, and everything he discovered about the connection to the afterlife is real, what does that mean for us? Death, as we've always been told, would be the end. But what if it's just the beginning of something much bigger? What if what happens after death is not a distant mystery, but a reality that is closer to us than we think? Each one of us has a story, an experience, a sign that makes us question. I want to hear yours. Have you ever felt the presence of someone who has passed? Or maybe you've experienced something inexplicable, something that made you question the line between what is real and what we can't see. Share your story in the comments and share your beliefs. This space is for everyone who believes that death is not the end, but perhaps a transition to something much greater. Now, more than ever, we need to open our minds to the possibilities. What we've learned today might just be the beginning of a journey towards self-discovery and understanding one of the greatest mysteries of our existence. And to close, I want you to remember one thing. Death is not the end, and maybe, just now, we are starting to understand that. Keep following our videos, share them with your friends, and let's explore what's beyond together.